Today I wanted to talk specifically about backside airs. It's Luke here again. I am super stoked to see how you guys responded to my last video that I uploaded. This past week has just been super cool because I've got to talk with people on the water and see your guys' responses on social media. It's just fired me up to keep talking about these different topics. Frontside airs and backside airs are so different. If I just made one video talking about airs, it wouldn't be enough. They're two just totally different feelings, two totally different approaches. As much as there's a lot of common elements in how to do them and land them and get better at them, there's quite a lot of nuances in the way that it feels and the sort of like trigger words that I think about when I'm trying to land them and get them down. Just to recap, if you guys didn't watch the last video, there's a few things that really matter before you ever land an air, before you ever go in the water, that will help you a lot in getting your make rate up or just landing it sooner than you would. Again, airs take years to land. I mean, it's taken me on average like 2 to 3 years to land every type of air that I've landed, from like first trying it to the first time I land it. So patience is obviously really important, but there's a lot of things you can do to set yourself up, kind of shorten that period of time of learning. First thing I would say before you ever get on the water is to pick the right board. Backside airs, they're a little bit different from frontside airs in my opinion. For one of the main reasons is you're trying to spin pretty fast, especially if you want to land a full rotation. And we'll talk about it later in this video, but there's some differences between doing a half rotation, so you land backwards, and a full rotation where you land facing down the line. And in my opinion, the full rotation backside air reverse is much easier. I know that sounds crazy because you're rotating more and it seems a little bit more extreme, but it's actually easier after a certain amount of time to ride out of that air than it is to land a normal air reverse. That being said, there's just some elements of like spin and rotation where the board choice really plays in. One of the main things that you're looking for is speed. So you want a board that's going to go fast, and then you want a board that's going to be able to spin well. Same as frontside airs as far as my board choice goes. With Channel Islands, that's a happy every day. That's the board that I've landed my best backside airs with. I've had some other boards that I've landed some big backside airs on, and we'll look at it in this video, is the Fever. It's a squash tail, so it's still flatter, a little bit more release. It gives you a little bit more release, so it allows you to spin easier. So squash tails always, in my opinion, easier for backside airs. But yeah, something shorter, a little bit wider, so you have a little bit just more balance, especially over your front foot. Thumbtails, pintails, those work as well. But typically when you have a board with that longer tail, you have more rail in the water. And when you're trying to do an air, you want release. So that flatter tail, it's going to help a lot. Location is really important. It's not a good idea to try backside airs at a wave that is not calling for it. For example, if you're surfing a point break, those are the hardest waves for me to land backside airs at. Backside, it's much harder because of the blind landing. Just the fact that you're going backside makes the landing a lot more technical. You have to rely on feel a lot more. If you're landing on an open face, it's going to be much harder. So you're looking for a wave with a closeout or some sort of air section. Beach breaks are super good for this. Really consistent nature, and just a lot of the times you surf a beach break, you're going to get an air section. Like most waves, there's a sand bottom and it's coming in pretty straight. You're going to be able to find an air section. So point breaks, not necessarily the best call. Reef breaks can sometimes be hard because it's a lot more powerful, and so you just got a lot more explosions going on. You can get hurt a lot easier. Again, a little bit softer face, a little bit more air sections and crumbles or closeouts, and then just finding an uncrowded spot. If you're fighting forever just to catch a wave and then you go for a backside air and you fail, backside airs will humiliate you more than any type of air. They're just something about them. They just get under your skin. The way you fall is always so awkward. Find a wave that you can practice away from people, or maybe just even with people, but you can catch a lot of waves. And then you just gotta have patience. I grew up in a place where frontside airs come a lot more natural to me just because of the wind, the way the North Shore is set up. It's just way easier to do airs going left with the swell directions and the wind than it is to go right. And so backside airs have always been kind of like one of my, barriers and one of my like obstacles I've had to overcome. The good news is for me that growing up on this island, we have the South Shore, which we're on the North Shore. The South Shore, the same wind that blows into the left on the North Shore blows into the right on the South Shore. So that's where I grew up learning to do airs. And I really had to be intentional about landing backside airs. It wasn't something that came naturally like frontside airs did on the North Shore. I had to really focus on it. To this day, it's a lot easier for me to lose my feel. Feel is a really important thing. Once you get that muscle memory, that mind-body connection of doing an air, it becomes a lot easier. But if you don't do it a lot, you kind of lose it. And so on the North Shore, I'm not doing a lot of backside airs. And then when I go surf a right that's got air wind, I typically tell people my first session of going for backside airs, if I haven't done them in a while, it's a lot harder. So I have to kind of give myself a whole session of just like a grace period where I'm just like not really trying to, have any expectations of landing airs. Now, of course, you got to scale that. Like if it's your first time landing a backside air, it might take a really, really long time. But no matter what, you just got to be patient. Again, they're kind of humiliating. Like the way that you rotate, the way that you can fall doing backside airs, it's just something about it. It's a blind landing. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. Even to this day, when I haven't done them in a while and I start going for them, it just feels wrong. It just doesn't feel right. But there's nothing. One of my favorite feelings in the world is doing a nice backside air. It's honestly like the most satisfying feeling. For inspiration, you watch someone like Yago Dora or John Florence or Italo Ferreira. These guys are just like some of the best at backside airs. And when you see them do a full rotation backside air and they land it super clean, it just looks satisfying. And I can tell you it very much is. Okay, so now we'll talk about more about what you do once you're on the wave. That's just kind of all the lead up, right? Being patient, having a good board, choosing the right spot to do it, understanding that it is going to be a little bit awkward and embarrassing sometimes, and you just got to get over that. You got to just say that the risk of failure and the risk of looking awkward, it doesn't matter. If you want to land it, you're going to have to get through all that stuff. When I was like 14 years old, I was surfing in town on the South Shore and I just kept going for backside airs and I kept falling. And it was really weird because I just felt like everyone else wasn't going for airs and they were surfing good and it looked good. And I looked like I was failing and I was kind of wasting waves. But I decided that one day when I start landing backside airs, it's going to feel a lot better. And I know it's going to pay off. Like when I start landing airs and they're not landing airs or however that works with my competition, I'm going to be stoked I put the time in and just, didn't care so much about what other people thought or that I was wasting waves, and can guarantee you it pays off. Okay, so now you're on the wave, you're approaching a section backside, you're on your heel side edge, pumping down the line most likely, and you see the air section, you're at a beach break, the wind's blowing at you, you're ready to land your first backside air, or you're just ready to land, a big air. The most important thing, just like for frontside airs, that's going to help you in landing an air is speed. If you don't have speed backside, you're going to look like either a kook if you don't have speed, or you're going to look like a pro if you do have speed. The best surfer in the world trying to do a backside air with no speed, it's not going to look good. It's awkward. The board won't rotate as well. You won't get out of the water. Your upper body won't be able to influence your rotation the way it does when, you have a lot of speed. So get speed. That is like the most important thing. High line, pump down the line. In fact, I'll probably make another video just talking about speed and why it's so important and how to get it. But you got to remember this when you're going for airs. Speed is so important. And then the next thing, we talked about this with frontside airs, but is projection and timing. Biggest factor in landing an air. I'll get caught in, it feels like a week or a couple weeks of like just falling on backside airs. And I don't know what it is. It almost feels like I'm getting used to falling and I'm training myself to fall. And it's so hard to locate where the issue is at. Almost every single time I've found that it all starts with this projection and timing thing. If you're forcing the air backside, it's going to be a lot harder to land it than if you let the wave do the work for you. For whatever reason, this is just more so the case backside than frontside that I've found. Frontside, for some reason, maybe it's the way you're pushing off your toes, or maybe it's the way that you're leaning with your arms or pulling your head. It's not the same as backside. Backside, if you don't connect with that lip the right way, you're not going to end up in the right spot. Or you're not going to rotate fast enough. Make sure that you find this sweet spot, and you'll know it when you found it. It's not like you'll be questioning whether you're timing or hitting right. You'll just know that you timed it right. What I look for when I'm pumping down the line backside, you almost want to see the wave throwing out and draw a line from the face of the wave, up the face of the wave, and then along the lip line as it's throwing out. So you want to almost draw like a question mark if you were to think about it like that. So question mark. I mean, that's for me backside. Maybe it would be different for someone if they're regular foot. I'm not totally sure. Maybe I'm kind of tripping on that. So I'm drawing my line forward, up the face of the wave, off the lip, and out. So it kind of goes like that. And you want to follow that lip line because for one, that lip has power and it has speed throwing out as the wave breaks. And when you're able to place your board on it, it's almost like you're getting a little speed boost from the wave. You're hacking. You don't really need to necessarily have all the speed in the world. If you hit that thing right and you allow it to push your board out, you're letting the wave kind of do some of the work for you. So that's what I look for. And then obviously you don't want to hit it too late where the wave is kind of cupping over your board. That's just going to stop your air and you're going to go flying out into the flats. You hit it too early, it's not giving you that projection outwards. You're going to force it and you're probably not going to get out in front of the wave. You're going to land in the trough of the wave where the wave is breaking and it's shooting back up. And that's where a lot of injuries happen when you're trying to force an air and you land in the trough and you're not like necessarily over your board. Another big thing with projection, if you're hitting a lip that's somewhat coming at you, like if there's any angle of the lip coming at you, it's going to push your board against your feet. And so even if there's maybe not a lot of wind to hold your board against your feet, the lip is kind of helping do that for you. If you don't get that, it's easy to get separated from your board, especially as we'll talk about when you're leaning out. Once you kind of force it and you're leaning out, your board can kind of become detached from you. You'll lose all the feel. And again, backside, blind spot, you can't really see where you're landing, that could result in an injury. So some of these things are just like injury prevention, to be honest. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about after speed and projection and timing is your upper body. The main thing here is just the simple nature of your stance. Front side, your back is to where you're rotating, but as you rotate, you can spot your landing, you can see everything. Backside, it's different. You can see everything as you're hitting the section, but as you start to rotate, you lose it and you can't see it because all of a sudden your body gets in the way and you can't really see over your shoulder very well. That's where a lot of the awkwardness comes into play, is once you start rotating. I grew up naturally going for backsiders a lot with this idea of you want to know where you're landing, you want to become aware of and feel comfortable. And so you want to spot your landing. And so what you do is instead of looking, and having this blind spot over your shoulder, you look down. And so you get to see what's going on, but your head is looking down. And so you're rotating, spinning like this, looking down instead of looking over your shoulder. Those are two different ways to do airs. A lot of people I know look down as they rotate, and a lot of people look over their shoulder as they rotate. My opinion with looking over your shoulder versus looking down really comes down to one main factor. John and Gabriel and Italo and Yago, when they do backside airs, they're looking over their shoulder. Not only do they do it, but also it's in the fact that when you look over your shoulder, you're forcing your head to turn. And we talked about this in the last video, but when you force your head to turn, you're forcing the rest of your body to turn. Your shoulders are going to turn where your head turns, your arms are going to turn where your shoulders turn, and your hips are going to turn as well. If you look down, you're not really giving yourself the opportunity to turn so much. You might be able to turn a little bit, but not as much as if you look over your shoulder. Pay attention to where your head is looking. If it's looking down, you might not be rotating fast enough. You might not be lengthening your body, which is actually really important during the air. Try and get your head. Now, people are able to land airs looking with their head down, and a lot of surfers do it. You'll see that. I've always chosen to look over my shoulder because I think it helps me rotate a lot faster. In the last video, I talked about the head being the main point to focus on, but I do think your arms matter. Frontside airs, you're really just trying to throw your arms out so that your hips kind of turn out and the rest of your body turns out. Backside, it's kind of weird and awkward to just throw your arms out for whatever reason. We'll watch it, we'll review a clip and we'll see where my arms go. What I've found to be the case is there's this kind of this ballerina look that the best backsiders have. The front arm leads, the back arm kind of stays close to you, and as you hit it in the air, you put your front arm out and you twist, and you have this axis where your front arm almost, you could stick a pull through your front arm hand, your leading arm hand, and the rest of your body, and you're spinning on this axis. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like a ballet dancer. You're spinning off this really defined axis of rotation. And if your arm doesn't get there or doesn't find it, your airs just become less predictable and harder to control. So there is a way, I would almost say there is more of a formula backside for where to put your arms while you're doing the air. And it starts with that leading arm. As your head turns, your leading arm kind of throws out a little bit, but mostly up, and the rest of your body will follow. I've noticed that my back arm tends to swing out to get my body to turn. That's not always important. If your front arm is throwing out, then your back arm doesn't need to as much, but sometimes my front arm doesn't throw out so much and my back arm ends up pulling my body around that way. It's a little bit hard to explain while sitting in the chair, so I apologize if it looks awkward. We'll look at a clip to really analyze it and see it right. One more thing that I want to clarify, and that's the coil. Front side and back side, both alike. As you're rotating your board off the water into the air, you need to prepare for it by giving your body some potential energy to work with. Imagine you're using a top and you're getting ready to spin it and you twist your hand all the way over like that, right? You need to be able to create some load so that as you hit the section, you can release it and you can get the spin going without having to force it once you're in the air. So backside and front side, but especially backside, loading up and coiling is so important. If you want to spin, towards the beach, you need to twist away from the beach. And so backside for me as a goofy footer, I'm opening up my body like this. And it almost would look awkward if you just held it for a long time. But in the context of going for an air, this is like, you cannot skip this. You need to open up your whole chest, your arms, your torso, and your neck and your head, so that as you hit the section, you have all this, I guess you would call it potential energy. It's just twisting strength, like torsion. So as you hit the section, all your muscles fire and you spin the other way, right? And that creates that perfect moment of liftoff. You're releasing that coil and it gets you spinning. You're going down the line, you're preparing by opening up your whole body. If you're regular foot, you're opening up like this, but as a goofy foot, I'm opening up like this so that as I hit the section with the right timing and projection, I twist it and it just all comes together. The more I load up, the more I'm going to twist. If I only open up a little bit and I hit the section, I'm going to have to force it in the air and it's going to become really awkward. And it's going to get in my way of actually landing the air. If I twist up as much as I can, it's just making things easier. So make sure as you're focusing on projection and timing and speed that you open up your body before you hit the section, so you have all the necessary coil to release it once you get in the air, right? You don't need to even worry about it. Once you're in the air, it's almost like you've already done the work, and what you prepared for by coiling, it comes around easy. So make sure to remember that as you're going for the air. The other thing is your lower body. So after your head is turning, your arms are kind of throwing the rest of your torso. Your lower body matters too. You're pushing off your back foot, but I also want to say that I think that you lean out a bit more on your backside airs than frontside airs. It really does help get you into that axis of rotation that I was talking about before, where it's kind of at an angle. Your spine and your head and everything's kind of at an angle. Front side, you could almost be a little bit more upright and it's okay. I think backside, you want to be a little bit more tilted. And so as you hit the lip, you really want to make sure you're leaning to get that board out from under you, where you push with your toes and you get it to scoop out from underneath you and spin. So hopefully that makes sense. Lean a little bit as you project off the lip and turn your head and throw your shoulders. Weight distribution, when you're doing a half rotation versus a full rotation, that's where kind of the main difference comes into play, is with the weight distribution. So either way, as you hit the section, you're pushing off your back foot and you're leaning out kind of over your front foot. When you're doing a half rotation, you kind of stay with your weight over your front foot until your board comes around, and then you land with your front foot first, and then you put your weight onto your back foot as you land in the white water and spin around. A full rotation, you're going to do that same axis of rotation. You're going to keep spinning, and there's going to be a moment where right before you land, you're actually coming onto your back foot for a second. Pretty interesting. And it depends on the section, but usually you start by pushing off with your back foot, then halfway through the air, your weight's over your front foot, which is where you'd normally land a half rotation. But as you do a full rotation, your weight comes back onto your back foot as you land. And then you'll land with your back foot first, and then you'll come forward. There is a difference there. And I'll try to get two clips side by side so we can really parse out the difference in them. The half rotation, to me, always a little bit harder because you're blind the whole time to what's going on underneath you, especially if your head is looking over your shoulder. Whereas a full rotation, your head's looking over your shoulder. Eventually, you can actually see your whole landing. Again, that's why I would suggest don't just stop with the half rotation, because it's actually going to be pretty easy once you get the full rotation spin down to land it, because you're a little bit more aware of what's going on around you. So yeah, just recapping those things again, just with the approach on the wave, you need speed, you need projection, you need to be able to push off that lip firmly. That's going to do the work for the rotation more than anything else. Once you've projected, once you've timed it correctly, you're throwing your head, you're throwing your arms up, You're looking over your shoulder, not down. You're looking over your shoulder. You're spinning off your axis of rotation, which is your top hand, your front hand, and kind of through your spine. And it's at an angle, so you're leaning as you hit the section, spinning as hard as you can, and then you're landing firm, hopefully in the white water, hopefully over your board to ride out. As you progress, I highly recommend going for the full rotation. Front side, I wouldn't necessarily say the same. It's much easier to land backwards and spin around, and then it becomes harder once you try to do a full rotation. But backside, I have found that it seems to be the case that the half rotation versus the full rotation are very similar in difficulty because you're rotating with this blind spot. So in this clip, I've been pumping down the line. I've gathered speed, and then we notice that, right, I'm getting ready by coiling. I'm opening up my whole upper body. Look at this. Like I'm twisting so that my arm is reaching almost behind my body. Like that's really, really opened up. The next thing I focus on is projection and timing. So this is a good example. The lip doesn't get over my board. So that's just a sign that I wasn't there too late, but then it also does push me out. And so that means I wasn't there too early either. This is just perfect timing. As I hit the section, my upper body's already beginning to twist before I even get in the air. So remember that. You're looking for that golden moment of twisting while hitting the section. That's really going to help you in getting rotating at the right time and in the right place. My head's already turning. My board is kind of facing out and up. I'm pushing off the back foot at this specific moment. You can kind of see it sunk into the wave. My foot's all the way back on the traction pad. Already, just as I'm getting out of the water, look at where my head is. I'm already twisting, like almost looking out the back at the ocean. And my arms, because they're already coiled up, they look like they're in almost a neutral position right now. But they are spinning because of how much I coiled up. And then now watch upper body, watch my back arm. So unlike maybe all the best surfers, I kind of do this thing with my back arm to really get myself rotating. It kind of goes forward like that. That's just to really open up my body so it starts rotating, but not everyone does that. If you're throwing your front arm around, your back arm kind of doesn't need to do what it's doing in this clip. Just like that. My head is rotating. Now this is where I wanted to point out kind of this axis of rotation. Check out how really from my front arm through my entire spine, there's like a straight line, and I'm kind of spinning almost like a ballet dancer or a ballerina. That's what I keep thinking of. But like, and you notice if you're to draw a line, it's at an angle. It's not a straight vertical line. And that causes my board to also not be flat and horizontal, but kind of at an angle. I believe this is the easiest way to spin. I don't think it's easier to spin flat. I think it's easier to get kind of in this axis of rotation where when you hit the lip, you're leaning already. I'm actually leaning almost sideways. Look at how my upper body is almost sideways right here. So as I rotate, I'm spinning off that axis of rotation. You could be flat and spinning off of it like that, but in this instance, at a little bit of an angle. My head's turning. It's looking over my shoulder. Notice that. From the get-go, I'm not looking down. I was never looking down, but I'm looking over my shoulder. So you can see my eyes are kind of like out here right now, looking out and over. And my weight right now, by the way, is kind of even. It's even footed, I would say. If this were more of a half rotation, I'd put it over my front foot. But as we'll see, this air is kind of somewhere between a half rotation and a full rotation. So as I'm coming down, I'm starting to spot my landing. This whole time it's blind. I have no idea where I'm going to land, what the wave looks like. Can't see it until about right here. Now I'm starting to see where I'm landing. I'm looking down at it. My weight is kind of even in both feet. I would say at this point in the rotation, it's probably more on my back foot because I'm already starting to have that full rotation technique where I'm like spotting my landing. But most of the time right here, your weight would be over your front foot. At this point, it's on my back foot, planting it down, and the wave just kind of does the rest, and I ride out. Here's a full rotation. Another example, gathering lots of speed, coiling up. This is on the same day, by the way. I was super stoked that I like kind of got it down this day. I was like, okay, finally, I'm back in a rhythm. Uncoiling, back arm comes out a lot on this one. This isn't like something, again, that I'd recommend. This is just the way that I do it. So everyone is allowed to kind of do it differently. But look at all my weight's in my back foot. My front foot is just kind of on the toes right now. But my head's already twisting, turning, looking over my shoulder. See that same axis of rotation as through my spine up to my front arm. And then because I coiled up so much and I projected off the lip at the right moment, I caught the lip a little bit. So it was like maybe slightly late, but it still gave me the necessary projection, especially with my nose angled out towards the beach, to spin around really, really quick. And already like halfway through the rotation, I'm like, yep, this is going to be a full row. I'm spotting my landing. And this is where you'll see my weight is going to come through my back foot. So on these types of airs, when you're spinning all the way around, it's kind of dangerous to land over your front foot. I feel like you can almost cause some injury, but because of my axis of rotation, my whole body's kind of over my back foot anyways. So I wouldn't be shooting my board out if I were to land on it. That's just the right place to land. You could draw a straight line from my head through my heel. And so I'm landing just like that on my back foot, and really easy. So because I projected out, I was able to land in front of that explosion. I didn't get caught in the trough, and things just went really easy. And that's it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed those examples and they helped make more sense. Let me know what you think. If you have any more questions on backside airs, one of the hardest moves you can do in surfing, for sure. It takes a lot of dedication and intentionality in order to land it, but it's so rewarding. It's so satisfying when you can get around on a full rotation or even a half rotation and stomp it. At first, feels super awkward, unnatural, not right, but once you start practicing, you get it down, it feels amazing. It's one of those staples, I think, in surfing. Once you get it down, it just really rounds out your whole surfing arsenal of moves. So hope you guys found this helpful. I did kind of go long again. I go in depth and maybe a little bit too in depth sometimes, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it anyways, and I'll see you in the next video.